And there's the second one. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to another fantastic episode of This Uncanny Earth brought to you by the Spirits Club and the Uncanny Alchemist, bringing you classic videos of drinking and amazing video gaming. So, as always, I am your host, Robert Solomon. And of course, I couldn't have a show without my homie. Right there. I gotta do it like this way because I don't know where it is.
Yep.
Without the homie. You guys know him as Spider. Spider, how are you doing, man? What's going on with you?
Doing well mostly. It's been a busy week.
Sure has.
Of course, we hung out beginning of the week on Sunday.
We sure did. That was a great
Eh,
hangout too, by the way. It rained. We got
Yeah.
drenched.
Oh yeah.
We
Yeah.
got
Completely
drenched.
soaked. Completely
Got
soaked.
straight drenched. It
That
was
kind of set the
insane.
tone for the rest of my week because I got soaked here the next time it rained, and then just been running like mad since then, doing videos and playing catch up on everything. So.
Always be the hardest worker in the room.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm,
Always.
mm-hmm.
And I had to deal with some water issues today. I have water coming in the house. So I had to put some tubs down to catch the water. And then tomorrow I gotta put some epoxy on the
Mm.
outside. I know what's wrong, so I know how to fix it. So came in. The people who owned the house before me did not do a good job of things, so I have to play catch up with a lot of things in this house. Anyways, that's neither here nor there. I want to welcome you all to another episode of This Uncanny. Tonight we are talking about the Amazon. That is right, the Amazon, the giant rainforest that covers 9 different countries. Now, see, I always thought it covered Brazil. And that was it. Lo and behold, it covers more than Brazil.
Mm-hmm.
It covers Bolivia, Colombia, French Guiana, Ecuador, Peru, Suriname, and Venezuela, and even Guyana. So,
And
and Brazil, of
a
course.
fun fact
I
is that
mentioned already.
specifically the part that's in Colombia makes Colombia the most biodiverse country on the face of the
Nice.
planet because of the
Nice.
Amazon. I mean, the overall rainforest in all of South America is the most biodiverse of
100%.
its own, but then Colombia has like
Yeah.
the most specific part of it. So,
But remember, you can't say that for Brazil only because the size of Brazil.
mhm.
The Brazil is
Yeah.
massive. I want to go there one day. There's a lot of cool places in Brazil I want to see. But that is the reason why Colombia wins that title, because their
Mhm.
country's a lot smaller.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
they're able to have that title, as to where Brazil is a lot more massive.
Mhm.
Now, the rainforest does cover Brazil predominantly at 58%. And then the rest of them cover it in
Mhm.
different percentage. I didn't pull the percentages for those, but you guys can look that up. That's just public information. Some of the cool parts about the Amazon, which I absolutely think is amazing, are the geoglyphs and
Mhm.
lost civilizations like the city of Z. I'll be getting into those two things
Percy Fawcett.
tonight. Percy Fawcett, yes, sir, and his son Jack and Raleigh.
You can tell I
And
did some research today.
you did. I hope we didn't do the same research, because I did a straight up Percy Fawcett in-depth deep dive.
No, I didn't go that far. I just remember I looked up some facts, some straight facts here or there.
Some straight facts. Oh, look who it is. There we go. Hey there. Hey. With the dancing emoji. But yes. So, and also things like isolated tribes and giant snakes. Now, what you have to remember about the Amazon rainforest is that there's going to be more oxygen content, because what do trees give off? Oxygen. They take in carbon dioxide and give out oxygen. So things can be bigger if there's a higher oxygen content. Yes, Percy Fawcett was awesome, and we're going to get into him. Do not worry. We're going to get him. But to be honest, things like giant snakes would be par for the course. But you have
The
other
green
things like,
anaconda.
yeah. And, my anaconda don't want none unless you got, no.
Hot dog stand?
Hot dog stand.
I don't know. I gotta have a bun for the hot dog stand. I don't know. You can't just hold it with your hand.
I like buns. You got to have buns for the hot dog. You know
If
what I
you
mean?
just have relish on the hot dog and
No,
stuff, it's just gonna make a
no.
mess in your hand. So
Gross. You don't want to have a hot dog in your hands and it making a mess. You got to have some buns for that hot dog.
yeah,
This has just turned into an MA-17 show. It did. I'm sorry.
we recovered it in a way that you can. It's one of those like things you look at where it's something nice on one
Standards and
picture,
practices
and if you go
are
over
not going to
there,
come down on us. That's all we got to say.
yeah,
So, yes, but biodiversity, poison dart frogs,
Hmm.
Yetis, a Sasquatch-esque entity lives in that rainforest. Here's something that you guys didn't know, or maybe you did know. I don't know. The rainforest itself isn't a natural thing. It is a man-made thing that sits at over 11,000 years old. A lot of this is because mankind has shaped the rainforest itself. Terra preta. I don't know if you guys know what terra preta is, but terra preta is a black soil substance. So a lot of times people will say, well, the Amazon could not have had a civilization flourish because they did not have good soil, right? They didn't have good soil. However, terra preta takes care of that. Now, what terra preta is, it's a mixture of not that cat, but if that cat died and you could harvest its bones and put its bones in the soil, that's part of it. Pottery shards. It's basically pottery shards, bones, charcoal, things that you put into the soil to make things grow. And what it does, what terra preta does, is it actually enables the soil to hold nutrients. Because, see, the Amazon soil isn't very forgiving. Remember, if you have a place that has a lot of trees, what do the trees take up out of the ground? The minerals. What does that cat take out of the ground? Nobody knows, but he leaves stuff in the ground. Similar. But that cat is not terra preta until it is deceased. And it's not deceased, so you guys should just look at the cat for right now. Well, I do something shiesty because that's the thing. There it is. Look at that cat. Look at that cat. It's dancing. It's dancing.
She's the oldest cat I have. She's super old.
How old is she?
I got her when I was still in Akron.
Man,
So she's probably like
you have
13, 14 years old.
We weren't even friends when you lived in Akron, so that's crazy. I lived in Akron before, after you moved to Akron, after you left Akron. So that's crazy.
I just don't like hanging out by people. That's all. You move there, I'm leaving. See you later.
Well, a lot of people moved when I moved, so it's fine. It's all right. But yeah, so terra preta, the soil, and what they did was they put the soil down, and what the soil does is it rejuvenates and regenerates into the previous soil. So they would have a soil that was stacked here at this layer, then they would put terra preta right above that layer. And what that did is once everything decomposed, it would seep down into the other layers, making those layers fertile. I know something else that's fertile. Nice soil. So what that did was that turned that into nice soil. And so what we have is we have these ancient civilizations that once again prove time after time after time that mankind was very advanced at an early age. We didn't just hit on to electricity in the late 1800s, early 1900s, and all of a sudden, boom, we're intelligent. No, see, cat, he knows, she knows. So yes, terra preta. Also, another interesting aspect, and like he said, biodiverse, but of a dangerous kind, piranhas. Piranhas are all through the Amazon. Like, there was a guy, I forget his name, I was looking at stuff earlier. He swam down one of the biggest river basins, the Amazon River Basin. It took him 66 days to swim down this thing, right? This thing has piranhas, all sorts of things that would get you. And you know what he did? It was a Slovakian man. He drank Slovakian wine every day and then swam in the river. And I understand how that works, because what happens is, many of you don't understand this, but when you drink certain kinds of alcohol, your body sweats it out and gives off a chemical. It gives off like a stink, if you will. Like, I don't know how many of you guys have drank cheap stuff. I know me and my co-host have drank plenty of cheap stuff because they ain't got a lot of money sometimes. And the next day you kind of have an odor about you. So what I think is, this guy, this Slovenian guy drank a Slovenian wine the next day. And what better way to cure a hangover than to jump into a river, get some of that water in you, waking you up, get a little food, a little water, and you're good to go. Your body's 70% water. So when you're in tune with water, you're good to go. Plus the odor from the wine that's drifting off of him is not going to attract piranhas and all sorts of vile things like parasites, because that's the one thing you have to remember about, like, places like this. There's parasites, there's bugs. Any kind of warm weather climate, you're going to have bugs, parasites,
and with water, because
and especially with water, especially with standing water. That's why you never drink standing water. Ever. Never drink
It
standing
breeds
water.
bacteria, it breeds
Yep.
parasites.
Yep.
All it's like in my house. Like anytime my daughter's like, "Oh yeah, I washed my hands," I go up, left water all around the sink. First thing you
Yeah.
do, wipe it up, because
Wipe it
you
up.
leave it, it'll dry and it'll get germs.
Yeah, 100%. Water is a very dangerous thing. Water and fire are very dangerous things. So yes, so we have that water aspect playing a key role, because what else would flourish a civilization? Water. Water is going to flourish a civilization. Now, I don't know how many of you believe this. I personally believe that there's 100% a chance, well, not a chance, 100% there was ancient civilizations in the Amazon. I don't dispute that personally.
Mm. They've done LiDAR scanning,
Right,
which
right, right.
is advanced like mapping and things like that, and they've
Yes.
seen all kinds of things under there. The
Yes.
issue, though, is the same issue that's been there for hundreds of years, is getting to any of these places, surviving the way there, because no matter how well equipped you are, there's, like we said, there's disease, there's the insects, there's the wildlife, there's all these things, and you can't just go and be like, okay, we're going to go and do a study. There's so many ways that you can run into trouble there, that even if you're prepared, you might run out of medication, you might run out of
100%.
antibiotics, you might run out
100%.
of insect repellent, or you might
Yes.
find a new insect that doesn't care about your insect repellent,
Yes.
and it gives you some form of super malaria that we've never encountered before. And
Yes.
so there's so many things there that they can see with the scanning and all that other kind of stuff,
Yes.
structures and things, but you can't get to them so far.
No, and another thing that people don't understand, how fast things grow there too. Like you have the perfect climate for things to grow. If you have good soil by terra preta and it's left, and that civilization or whatever has been conquered, but they've left terra preta, then everything is going to grow. And what happens is, because the Amazon has the most cover in terms of brush cover, we're talking trees that are 80 to 100 feet, right? You're out there. The tree canopy is absurd. And it only takes a little bit of time for nature to reclaim when mankind is no longer there. I remember this interesting show on the History Channel called,
Yeah,
what
I
was
was
that
just thinking
called?
about that.
That was
It was like
something without human
they did it
contact.
several times. They did it like 1 year after humans, then they did like
5
10 years after
years,
humans,
5
and
years,
they
10 years,
did
20
different
years,
increments of
100
it,
years.
and they would show what cities would look like all overgrown, and what potentially, because they would track, like, this is how fast vegetation in this country, in this area, would grow.
Yes. And if you have a humid climate with the ability to have good soil and grow crop, you're going to be set to go. So all these places, they start flourishing, right? And then what happens is all of the woodworking you would have, because a lot of your civilizations used wood. Stone wasn't readily available in the Amazon jungle or in the Amazonian rainforest. You didn't have just stones readily available. You have places like Teotihuacan, and you have other places like Machu Picchu that had stone available. They had quarries they could mine from. You can't mine stone from the Amazonian rainforest. So you in fact had to use wood, because why wouldn't you? There are trees everywhere, 80 to 100 feet. You get enough trees, but the problem with wood, unless it's pressure treated, is it will at some point rot if you don't take care of it. So all these civilizations, of course, that come through, they collapse and the wood rots, or other indigenous populations come and take the wood, as we have seen with Noah's Ark. Noah's Ark was left on Mount Ararat, and the people took the wood from Noah's Ark to make their civilizations. Why would you leave a giant boat with a bunch of wood there and be like, nah, we don't need that wood.
Why wouldn't you just use that for resources?
Like, there it is. And there it is. And we'll probably do a whole in-depth show on that at some point. But same thing with the rainforest. Why wouldn't you take all this wood? They've already built the houses. You take what you need and you go and you do your thing. Now, the interesting aspect of this, and I want to get into this, are what's known as geoglyphs. Now, geoglyphs are, when you think of geoglyphs, there are two that should come to mind. Well, at least one. The most famous geoglyph is the Nazca lines. We're
Mhm.
talking about the giant ant. We're talking about the giant bird. All of these things that they had built in Peru, in Nazca, before human civilization was predominant on the globe. Oh, we're going to have a Noah show. Understand, we're going to have a Noah show, and we're going to incorporate some other belief systems into that Noah show, because Noah doesn't just show up in Judaism. He
Oh,
shows up.
Napishtim.
He shows up in
Oh yeah.
Yeah, he shows up in Islam. He shows up in Sumerian text. These are things that we see. You think, oh, it's just Christian. No, because Noah isn't Christian. Noah's not from the Christian concept. The Christian concept starts from Christ and goes forward, because Christianity, Christ, when he's born, and then it goes forward. Noah, however, is in many different legends, cultures, religions, Sumerian, Babylonian, all of it. Yes. But we're gonna get into that. We're gonna have, you know what? We're gonna have that next week. Do it next week.
Done.
Done. There you go, James. Thank you so much for that. But these geoglyphs show up in Brazil. Now, let me explain to you guys what an actual geoglyph is, because I know some of you might not know what a geoglyph is, because I didn't know what a geoglyph was. So let me explain. So what a geoglyph is, it's a large design or motif that's produced on the ground by durable elements of the landscape, such as stones, stone fragments, gravel, or even and including earth. There's positive and negative geoglyphs. And what positive geoglyphs are, those are formed by arrangement and alignment of materials laying on the ground. So like if we made some geoglyphs here at the house, I would take some stones and some wood that I have laying around, and we would build a little monument and people could see that. What negative geoglyphs are actually removing parts of the natural ground and or surface to create differently colored and or textured ground. The Nazca lines in Peru, like I have stated previous and prior, are the most famous ones, followed by, and this is a little close to here, the works of the old men in Arabia, which is pretty cool. I looked those up. It was pretty interesting. However, the geoglyphs in Brazil that we're talking about now were discovered by Ondamar Diaz in 1977. And these glyphs were dated from between 1 to 1250 AD and are cited as evidence as a complex pre-Columbian civilization. The one thing that I think history does, and I think it does it on purpose, to be honest, is it always wants to make our ancestors before, I would say, the Industrial Revolution. I would say before the Industrial Revolution. Makes them look like idiots, like they could not do anything. But then you read different accounts of people in different parts of the world who were doing things highly advanced, taking plants, taking things into their body that came out later like, whoa, this is really good for, suppressing cancers. This is really good for your immune system. And it comes out later that these things were serious, but then we're all idiots from a certain time. And it's like, what do you do with that?
Mm.
But I know you wanted to say something to that.
Oh no, I was waving a flyaway. But anyway, you're right though. There's this assumption, and you're taught this in school, that everybody before modern people, as far as we know them, were just primitives, were savage, were and then you're taught that, oh yeah, we went through a big period of art, and then there was the Dark Ages. So you're like, okay, well, but what about anything else? There has to be other periods of like advancement and things like that. Oh no, of course not. Like all the great advances happened from the Romans onward, basically, is what it is.
Yeah.
And that's because everybody's obsessed with empires and empires and empires.
100%,
And of course,
100%.
that's the only way anything gets done, is with the empires and the kingdom and the feudal society. Do what you're told, that kind of thing.
Yes.
But
yes.
There's so
100%.
much beforehand, like the stonework alone. When you look at how closely aligned the stones are, and this is getting into like some Ancient Aliens show kind of stuff, because they always talk about it.
I don't.
But
I think that, and my biggest gripe, not to interrupt you, with Ancient Aliens, which I loved at first, is everything is aliens because they think that
Mm,
mankind is too stupid to do anything on their own, which I highly disagree with 100%. I do not think that at all. But what I like to see, like Machu Picchu and things like that,
mm-hmm.
and
Puma
Gobekli
Punku.
Tepe, yeah, Pumapunku and like Gobekli Tepe, is
Mm-hmm.
that the stones are so intertwined that
Mm-hmm.
they can't even put a credit card or like a piece of plastic that thin into them. Like it
They're
stops them
solid.
abruptly. Yes.
It's
Yes.
solid stuff, and it's not
Yes.
like they're like when you think about modern walls sometimes. Like you can go to the UK and
Yep.
people have, oh yeah, we've got all these this old stone wall was on this property when I first moved in here and it's been here for hundreds of years and it's just rocks stacked on top of each other and they constantly have to fix it because it just gets pushed over.
Yeah.
That's Europe. Whereas every like in the Middle East, in South America, in parts of Africa, you've got these massive
Yes.
stone walls that have stood there and stood there and stood there, and they've only fallen over because someone came and attacked them heavily and
Yeah.
knocked them over with purpose, or because nature really started ripping away at them like the Amazon. But other than that, like the engineering involved is crazy, and we
Yep.
clearly lost a huge chunk of that between when they disappeared and when modern bricklaying and things happened. Because
100%.
there's that period in between where it's just let's just stack a bunch of rocks up and it's a wall, you know? So it's amazing how the type of things that are out there that we've lost the ability to understand, especially in places like the Amazon, that you can't
Yes.
really go and research. Like there's so much there. The geoglyphs alone is another part of it because
Yep.
clearly they made these to be seen from a certain angle, but now there's trees everywhere. So were the
Yes.
trees
Yes.
less, or were there clearings, or what
Yeah.
happened? We don't know. Everything's been reclaimed so quickly.
And the thing is, and I want to touch on this too. While he said that some of the stone walls have fallen, Stonehenge henges have not fallen. They are very much there and present, and people go about it like it's an everyday thing because
Mhm.
when you have, and this is why I really want to go to another country, because we as Americans, we have only been truly active as the civilization we are now not even that long. Let's see, 1776, 1876, 1976, 200 some odd years, maybe,
Yeah.
300 at some point. Uh, I want to go somewhere that's thousands of years old because it's a different thing. Now, I'm not saying we are not thousands of years old. Maybe it's because we have been burned and just because the Native Americans talk about the Redbeards fighting the Blackbeards and killing the Blackbeards. And the Redbeards were giants, the Blackbeards were giants as well. And the Redbeards came in, killed the Blackbeards. Then the Native Americans came in, killed them, took their land. It's been an ongoing fight. And then we come along and we do the same thing. And for those of you that are like, well, that sounds heartless, that's history. You can't history is just facts.
Mhm.
People are going to get conquered, conquests are going to happen. You can't blame people for it. You can't blame a whole group of people for it. That's just how history is. We forget that Genghis Khan conquered half the known world at one
Mhm.
point. Attila the Hun conquered half the known world at one point. It wasn't until somebody said, "Could you please stop?" that he actually stopped. Like they said, "Please." Like he had never heard somebody be polite to him, and that's what did it. And it just took him to say, "Could you please stop?" We forget that the Arabs went on a heyday
Mhm.
and were destroying everything and making slaves, and that's just the way mankind is.
The Barbary
Uh,
Coast and all kinds of things. They went all up
you
and
know,
down, like collecting all
yes,
that and piracy and whatnot. And
yes. You know, King Leopold's one of the worst people in the history of the world, and he doesn't get the things to him. But he went to Africa and made slaves and cut off Africans' hands. Christopher Columbus stuff.
Mhm.
And there's a pattern for that. People will do this. The minute that somebody thinks that another group of people or race is inferior, they will do whatever they can because they don't view them on the same vein as
Mhm.
they are. Anytime there's a superiority complex, that's what happens. And that is just human nature. Exactly. That's it. But I don't think it's human nature per se. I think it's more of a mob mentality. I think when you get other people who say that, right? And there's a powerful figure that says, hey, you know what? Because the one thing that I have noticed about studying history, these powerful figures go unchecked for so long, nobody bothers to say, no, I'm not doing that. Because that powerful figure is usually crazy. Genghis Khan was an absolute nutcase. If you would say, no, I'm not doing that, he would have you and your family and your ancestors strung up in a heartbeat, dead. But then there comes along that one figure in history that says, you could try it if you want to, but I'm about that action more than you are. And that's all it takes. And so we have to remember that I think that when we get into a mob mentality, people become stupid. Anyway, I'm digressing from the topic at hand. The geoglyphs we are talking about are located in Acre. Now, Acre is also, or Acre is also in, I believe, the UK. And that's a whole other thing with the Crusades and stuff like that. But this one is in Brazil. And there are 306 geoglyphs that are made up of 410 earthen structures. Here's the thing. That's just what they've discovered. There's more because they keep finding them. Updated count was that one, but they just keep finding them. And I think they're going to keep finding them as long as it remains untouched. Because the thing is, these things, once everything grows up around it, parts of it are still there, but you're not going to find it. You get through a lush jungle. You can't go through a lush jungle like that and just be like, oh, you have to clear trees away. You know what I mean? You got to clear these trees away to see the whole picture. But in 1977, Ondamar Diaz discovered 8 earthen structures in Acre or Acre, however you want to say it. And he finds these things, and then they get released to the public. And then I think like a few years later, they did a flyover. And that's what really brought it home, was that flyover. Because those flyovers are something else. Because could you imagine going through the Nazca lines? You would just think they're just rocks. And this is another thing that leads me to believe we were far more advanced. Who are they making those to? With such precision. The precision on the ant, the precision on the bird is very, very precise. It looks like a bird. You could show that to anybody, and as long as they have seen a bird at least once in their life, they're going to say, that's a bird, or that's an ant, or that's a person, or that's this, that, and the third. Who are they making those to? What was the purpose?
Who's supposed to see them from that high up? Because you can't just climb a short ladder and be like, okay, I see it, great job. You can't just do like a short tower and be like, okay, yeah, I see it, great job. So you can't see it. And there's no evidence of any sort of structures like that there either. There's no big buildings. There's no big fortresses. There's nothing like that in most of these places that look down from a height high enough to see it. So clearly it's designed to be looked at from a height that's much higher up.
Way higher up.
So who is going to be up there?
You would have to Tower of Babel that high to look, because there's not just one. If there was one, I could probably be like, okay, they made a tower and they wanted to make it
fell down and whatever,
or they made like a temporary tower, then knocked it down, kept moving, temporary tower, knocked it down, kept them, which might be a plausible explanation. Maybe they did do that, but why would they do it, and to who are they doing it to? That's what I wonder. I wonder, why would you do it in the first place? Birds, ants, an ant. Why? What is the significance of an ant? They're incredibly strong for their size, sure. But what is the significance? What I think is, once again, these geoglyphs are far more advanced than we thought. I think they had some form of flying technology. Say what you want to say, call us this, that, and the third, but I will stand on the ground I stand on before I let anybody push me off the ground I stand on. And I will take it to the grave that those geoglyphs, not petroglyphs, that's something else. Those geoglyphs were made for something else. So whatever that is, I don't know. What do you got, Spider? Because after you're done, I'm going to this Percy Fawcett and the Legend of the City of Z wholeheartedly.
I'm gonna give a couple of local legends from the Amazon as well, because we know there's a lot of factual stuff, but there's a lot of other stuff that's interesting that deals with mostly cryptid style things.
Yes,
And
please.
because you can find that with any sort of ancient culture um, that
100%.
exists in places like this, and they flourish, especially in the Amazon, because there's so many different tribes that we haven't even like we may have met members of, but the tribe as a whole is called uncontacted because nobody's made an overture to the entire tribe. You might have encountered somebody out on a walkthrough and had a talk and it was friendly, but you haven't actually made friends with the tribe, and the tribes are like, nah, we're not going to come meet you. You
Right.
might see it once in a while, but whatever. And they've got all these legends and things.
Yep.
One of them, and I didn't know about most of these, so I'm only going to do a couple at a time
No,
in
go ahead.
between our main points here. But one of them is El Tunchi, an evil spirit that haunts the jungle and terrorizes people with an eerie whistling sound. And this is kind of crazy. They say he's an amalgamation of all the souls that have perished in the rainforest. And he's angered by anyone who disrespects the natural environment and also drawn to people who respond to the whistle. And this is the tricky part because if you hear the whistle and if you act on it, like if you're like, oh, what's that whistle? He's already got you. The whistle gets increasingly louder and higher pitched, and you have an unbearable urge to mimic the tune. And if you answer his call, you are sure to meet a hideous death.
I want to say something here, and I think this is a very interesting thing you bring up. In the Appalachian wilderness, so in the Appalachian Mountains, right? That region, that whole region, West Virginia, the Carolinas, all that jazz, right? There is a legend that you're not supposed to whistle at night. You're not supposed, or probably during the day too. You're not supposed to whistle because what happens is something will whistle back, and you're giving them your location. And I have to wonder if whatever it is that is whistling back and forth is the same thing.
Might have been brought over.
There it is.
Might have been brought over because ancient people. We've already talked about how prior to the Native Americans, there were many other people who went through this country who didn't stay.
Yes.
And even some who did stay became, integrated into the Native American tribes and evolved into our modern interpretation of the Native Americans.
Yes.
And they brought all kinds of their own legends with them.
Yes, 100%.
Once again, very well illustrated, and in the book that we always talk about, because it's a great book that deals exactly with that, is American Gods,
100%.
where they bring over their legends and things. And
fantastic book. Read
so
it.
if you guys ever get a chance, look it up if you like a good story. But yeah, it's fascinating how things will kind of interchange because you wouldn't think that something like that would be in a place like the Appalachians, because the Appalachians they're not really known to be connected to South America so much,
Not
as
at
far
all.
as we believe. But who knows? I mean, the legends come from somewhere.
And the thing is, maybe at one point that mountain range connected.
Mhm.
It's one of the oldest mountain ranges. It's the oldest mountain range in the United States.
Yeah. And it's always possible because the landscape changes over hundreds of thousands of years, and we don't even know exactly how much and how thoroughly things have changed, really. We have a lot of guesses and hypotheses, and sometimes people don't even look.
I've heard a whistle like a steam kettle boiling around my home on several occasions. Listen, James, I'm going to be in the Sutton region here for the next couple of weeks. If you would like to meet up for a little bit, get some lunch somewhere, I would love to hear what you have to say, man. You can definitely meet me. My co-host, not so much because he never has any time for it. He's not even a real person. He's really an AI to be dead, to be for real with
I'm
you.
a hologram. I'm 100% like
no, you can't be a hologram because you can be touched.
I'm a hard light hologram. New technology.
I don't like anything we're doing right now, and I quit. I'm done. The show's over. It's canceled. But yeah, that's the thing. These the legends that the world has, there's many of the same concepts within those legends that reverberate to other legends across the country. Well, let's do that, James. Send me a message and we'll set something up. I would love to do that. But yeah, the whole whistling aspect is very fascinating. Anyways, I didn't mean to interrupt your thunder there, man.
Oh no, good. It's good commentary because that's the point of all this, to get some good discussion on it. I'll do one more and then we're gonna get back into what you got next.
Oh yeah, my boy Percy Fawcett. Let's go.
This is something called the La Lupuna. Um, and apparently there's a bunch of types of trees called Lupuna trees in the Amazon, and myths about them differ greatly. They're massive, they're said to possess magical properties, and they're considered protectors of the jungle and will curse anyone who offends them. If you venture into the territory of one of these trees, the sorcerer tree, quote unquote, may punish you by causing your stomach to swell until you finally die from ruptured intestines. Um, and there are even tales of folks becoming ill after urinating too close to the tree's roots. So
Send it to the
interesting.
YouTube, James. Send it to
Interesting.
the YouTube. Send any messages to the YouTube channel. Sorry. That kind of sounds like Ents.
Hmm.
Reminds me of Ents, of Tolkien folklore,
Or
and
treants.
or
Treants were
Treants. Yeah.
from Greek. I think they're pre-Greek actually, but the Greeks and Greek stories had them in some of their stories um, about living trees and things like that. I think
Excellent.
Hercules did something with a treant. I don't remember sure. I know on the show with Kevin Sorbo he had a fight with a treant, but I
Man,
don't
I
know if
remember
that was
that
like an
show.
actual like story from the mythology. I just know that treants were part of that mythology, but I don't think there was actually. Maybe I'll have to actually go back and look and see if anything about the treants with actual Hercules. I remember he had to like lift him up off the ground so
I
his roots
remember
couldn't
that.
touch the ground
I used to watch
because
that show
that's
every
how he got his
Friday.
strength, and he was like invincible if he was on the ground, so he had to like pull him up and like hold him over his head, and that's how he defeated him.
Every Friday, I would watch Hercules. Every Friday. That was my show. Funny enough, here's a little story for you guys. I used to sneak into this water park or this swimming area, right? We saw it from afar and then got rained on. I used to sneak in there and swim because it was a lake and they took care of it. It was really nice at the time. And sometimes I would sneak in, and then one time they caught me. They're like, "What's your name?" And I told them my name was Kevin Sorbo, and they didn't watch the show, so they didn't connect. They're like, "All
Mm.
right, Kevin, well, we're gonna call your parents," and I took off. I was probably 15 at the time.
Does anyone know a Sorbo? Get the phone book. Look for Sorbos. Let's find this kid's parents.
But a buddy of mine at the time, he could corroborate that story. But I was like, they're like, "What's your name?" I was like, "Kevin Sorbo." To be young again, goofing hardcore style. So yeah, the whole idea of treants and ents and living trees. Living trees
Lupuna.
has kind of been a thing for a long time. The
Mm.
concept of a living tree. And we've all seen trees that have the weird faces in them and
Yep.
things like that. So who knows, man? Who knows? All right. Drum roll, please. Percy Foster and the Legend of City of Z.
Too bad we
So
don't have our sound effects anymore.
yeah, I know I missed those.
I gotta load them up in like the audio thing and see if it'll work.
We should
Do
do
the
that for sure.
applause and whatnot.
Yeah, I would like that. Percy Fawcett, born August 18th. Got a little excited. Born August 18th, 1867, and disappeared. Did not die in 1925. He was a noted archaeologist, explorer who ventured into the Amazon in search of the civilization known as Z. And according to Fawcett, the legend or the city of Z itself was thought to be a white lodge. Now, I don't want people getting misconstrued and thinking that it's a racial term, but a white lodge was a place of hidden knowledge, and he thought it was connected to Atlantis. There was because back then everybody thought everything was connected to Atlantis.
Mm.
But now Fawcett himself was the son of an aristocrat who had squandered not one but two family fortunes. He was an alcoholic. He had a lot of problems with that. Not Percy, but his father. And his childhood was spent his childhood was spent devoid of parental affection. So his mom and dad didn't really show that to him. So he kind of became who he was based off of that. And at 19, Fawcett receives his commission in the Royal Artillery and is posted in Sri Lanka, which then was known by the British colony of Ceylon. And in 1901, Fawcett himself, looking to be an explorer, enrolls at the Royal Geographical Society. And he would end up going to Morocco as both a surveyor and a secret agent. A secret agent.
Secret.
Or secret agent, man. Whatever. And in 1905, the president of the RGS approaches Fawcett and he says, hey, I got a different mission for you. Now, according to the self-proclaimed exploration Fawcett, that was the name he gave it. Not very, not very catchy. The president showed Fawcett an atlas of South America. And in between Bolivia and Brazil, he had all these blank spaces. Well, Bolivia, Brazil, and Peru, right? All these blank spaces. He said, you know what? You got to go in here and you got to figure out what is in here specifically. You got to figure this thing out. And, he says, you know what? It's time to go. And he's even he was even quoted as saying, here is the chance I've been waiting for. Destiny intends for me to go. So he has a few expeditions into the Amazon. He goes in, he does his thing, and he leaves and goes back home. So he begins to study the Amazonian dialects, and he would very much so immerse himself in the legends and traditions of the local tribes. Because we have to understand something here. The tribes at this time did not have very much human contact outside of rubber traders that would come in, but they would act hostile, so the tribes would kill them. Some were cannibal tribes, things like that. And so he has a thing of like, hey, if I go to a tribe, I got my hands up, making it look like I'm non-confrontational, I'm non-violent. I'm just trying to get through and make things happen for you guys, okay? And that's all I'm trying to do. And a lot of the time that worked. And he would bring gifts and stuff to give to tribes and share and spoils and things like that. Just good-natured things. And so he gets all of these accounts of South American history and historical accounts that reveal that the very first Spaniards that visit the Amazon end up having discovered numerous and very large settlements and many roads and fine highways inland. So they're finding all these roads because the paths were clear at the time, right? And so to Fawcett, that meant at one point there was a large, complex civilization in the Amazon, which would be decimated over the centuries, basically because the overgrowth. Once a civilization is gone, nature takes back over, and it is what it is. Now, one day while visiting an archive in Rio de Janeiro, Fawcett discovers a document that details a large, hidden, and very ancient city without inhabitants that was discovered in 1753. Now, that's about, 63, 73. That's 23 years later. The America or the United States would be called the United States, 1776, right? So, and in this, it describes how a Portuguese soldier of fortune, meaning basically a mercenary, comes upon ruins of an ancient civilization. Now they're coming down a mountain, and they're hopped up on gold. The legend of El Dorado, which I did not cover in these notes. El Dorado is a forbidden city of gold. It was this gigantic, illustrious, beautiful, everything was made of gold, and it fell to ruin and was lost to time. Like it's not there anymore. But because they had that lust and like, hey, you know what? We're going to go try to find this forbidden city of gold. They end up going on this expedition. Well, they find a temple with hieroglyphs. And this was all the proof Fawcett needed. And so he christens that city specifically Z. Now, his letters depart from Cuiabá on April 20th, 1925. He goes with his son Jack and his son Jack's friend Raleigh, and 2 Brazilian laborers, 8 mules, 2 horses, and a pair of dogs. Fawcett forges his path through the forest via a specially designed 18-inch machete. An 18-inch machete. The man is 55 years of age when he does this, and he is traversing with kids that are like 30, late 20s, early 30s. and he's more fit than they are. There's a point when he's going through this expedition where he gets so far ahead of them, they get scared and they camp for the night. He comes back the next day on a horse. Hey, guys, you ready to do this? And this is a man who's 3 times as old as his son and his son's friend. So we have to think, what? Now, after 9 days, they end up hacking their way into Dead Horse Camp. He had already previously been on an expedition, and so Dead Horse Camp he had made after one of his pack animals had died, and it was just a bad place. So he goes back there. He sees the white bones of his other pack animal, and they all get attacked by these bugs. It's one of those places where bugs just end up being predominant. And so in the end, he sends all of these helpers back to Cuiaba, right? He says, you know what, you guys should go back. And he also tried to send back Raleigh. Now, what happened to Raleigh is during their expedition, Raleigh gets bit by a tick. And so in the foot. So his foot ends up swelling to this proportional size and it becomes ulcerous. And so what I'm thinking is maybe there was an onset of Lyme disease or something like that. I don't know. I'm not sure about Lyme disease, but they would make kind of sense. Oh, look, it's Sound Zeus here. You know what? Our dorky friend Sound Zeus is here. He always calls me a nerd, so I call him a dork. It's all good. What's up, buddy? What's going on with you, man? Welcome. We're talking about the Amazon. And Sound Zeus, you're tuned in for the show tonight, man. Welcome. This is the first time you've been here for the show, I think, or that you at least commented. So we're just tonight is the show. And I normally stream, but tonight is on Fridays is the show that I host. This Uncanny Earth, and we decided to move it over to Twitch too to kind of get people to listen to it. Playing some Fallout New Vegas. Nice. Good call. My host doesn't care much for that game, but I thoroughly enjoyed it. So nice. That's what's up. So we're talking about Percy Fawcett and his exploration into the Amazon and how that happened. And so Raleigh's foot ends up being this swollen, huge mess. It's ulcerous, skin's peeling off. And Raleigh says, why don't you go back with them, get help? He says, no, I'm going to stay with my friend, his son, Jack. And so they go, all 3 of them, there's just 3 of them left. Mm-hmm. And so they go off without guides and they go into the jungle. And one of his last final notes states, by the time this dispatch is printed, we shall have long disappeared into the unknown. And his final letter to his wife says, you have no need or fear of failure. Now, he gets in front of different scholars before this, and he goes on to proclaim there is an ancient civilization. And of course, they laugh at him, and he's pretty broke and destitute because a lot of these men, they put a lot of money into things, and it isn't until the end when they disappear, mind you, that they finally hit it. But then he disappears and goes off into the forest, or I shouldn't say the forest, the rainforest. Like, this thing is massive. We're talking about 9 countries. This place was or that it contains. Now I'll say this: where they are talking about is the let me see if I can pull a thing up about it here, or not even a thing about it. Let me see if I can pull up a map of Brazil, because it does take place in Brazil. It's not any of the other countries. So let's see if I can pull up a good map of it here. Let's see here. There's Belém. Oh yeah. Okay. So let me do this there and present.
Fancy internet magic.
Internet magic.
Welcome to the World Wide Web.
There we go.
Imagine what you could do today.
All right. So if you guys are watching, right, what you see here is Manny Ramirez, the bobblehead. So make sure you get that by August 19th, I guess, apparently. But at geology.com, what we do, if we look, you will see that here's the word Brazil, right? We see Brazil. Mm-hmm. If you go down from the L, where the L is, because you guys can't see my pointer, go down from the L, you're going to see Cachimbo right here. You're going to see Cachimbo right beneath the Z, the I, and the L of Brazil. Underneath that is the Jingu, because it looks Chinese. You almost want to say Jingu, but the Jingu River. Over to the east, here's Palmas, which if you just go kind of diagonally, If you go northeast, you're going to see Palmas, right? It was in this region here, all of this region here, that the lost city of Z supposedly exists. I don't know how true that is, but it was east of the Jingu River basin.
Mm.
So, for that to, hey, Scruffy, what's up, buddy? What's going on, man? You're actually joining for the podcast tonight. I appreciate you, man. Much love. Thank you, sir. Hey, my friend. Scruffy's a good dude. Y'all make sure y'all go follow him on Twitch, please. But yeah, so that basin between that and the other part of Brazil is where the lost city of Z resides. It's all in that one area. And he gets all of this information and he just treks off into it. Now, over time, a lot of people say, yeah, we found the bones of this. Some say he was killed by indigenous tribes that had lived there and that had caught up to him and killed him, but they've never found his bones. And they found bones of people and they've analyzed them, and they were never one time, not once, his bones.
And with modern, they've done like DNA testing nowadays to try to track people who've gone through there to try to connect them with families and whatnot. And yeah, they have now. It could be that because of the way the jungle is, it may have just molded them beyond
swallowed him.
Identification. But who knows? Maybe he got there, found what he was looking for, and maybe for whatever reason he couldn't come back, so he stayed with the natives. Maybe he lived out the rest of his life just knowing, hey, I found this thing, but I can't get back. There's no way. There's something impassable. Like the landscape is just too bad, or the jungle is just too thick, or the tribe won't let me go because this is a sacred spot. So here we stay.
And that's the thing that a lot of us don't understand. Maybe what he found in and of itself was something that he didn't want to come back to normal society for. Maybe it had reached a point to where he said, you know what, if I come back with this information, it's going to be a problem. And I can't
get pillaged or something. It's going to get messed up, or somebody's going to just tromp in here and just bulldoze the whole thing, or stick it in a museum somewhere.
Yes. And, that's the thing with Percy Fawcett. He was for not messing things up. A lot of time in this era, you had these explorers from Europe that thought that the different indigenous tribes or people that lived in, other countries that were of an Indian style culture were savages. And he goes on to say, no, I think they're just like we are. And I want to go explore that. And we don't need to be traipsing around in these places, destroying what they have. That's why whenever he went to these tribes, he walked in with his hands up, or he had gifts, all of these things. In case nobody has told you today, y'all are amazing and appreciated. Stay beautiful. Well, thank you. That is a positive comment, and we very much appreciate it. We appreciate you. Thank you, Foxfire. Thank you so much. I appreciate that. Thank you. But that's the thing, like I've said, it gets to a point where he says, hey, I don't think these people are savages, and I think we should leave them alone. I'm looking for the city. I'm not trying to disrupt the indigenous tribes that live here. I'm just trying to find knowledge. And, he said, these are white lodges. These are places that have, it's not a racial thing. He just said it was a place that has high hidden knowledge that, a lot of people may not be ready for, and we may not be ready for something like that. And maybe he stayed there with his son's friend, though I think his son's friend probably died. His son's friend probably succumbed to a fever and gangrene, and they probably had to leave him. I wouldn't be surprised if they found his body, but him and his son, they might have found what they were looking for, because they've never found the bones. But then again, the Amazon is a vast place. It's 2.5 square miles of jungle, of rainforest. You know what I mean? So it's like, okay, 2.5 million square miles is a lot. It's a lot. So it's just something to think about when it comes to this case. This case fascinates me to no end, because it's just like, what if he did find it? What if he did find it? James says, I think the Maracoxi ate them. And that's a popular theory, is that an indigenous tribe got a hold of them. They weren't able to sort of secure their passage through. And, that's what happened. I think they might have found what they were looking for, and I think they couldn't come back from it. I think they got to a point where the knowledge was too great, and maybe they couldn't come back from it. I don't know. Your guess is as good as mine. That's, we're all here for the conjecture of things and how things work. And I think personally that I think he found it. There's just something about him being in his 50s and going ham on it. I think he found it. I personally think he found the lost city of Z, but we'll never know until deforestation happens or until and there's been many of explorers that have tried to go in after Percy Fawcett and look for him. And, they've taken these puncture-proof tires, GPS, the whole nine, still can't find him. So he was either in somebody's stomach because, cannibalism is still a thing, and especially tribes that have never been found. And, there's parts of, the Brazilian government that say, hey, if you get lost here, we're not responsible. We're not coming to get you. The tribes own this. We're not, we're not trying to ruffle any feathers as is. And so to me, I just feel like that's probably the case. We'll never know. Obviously, we'll never be able to sit back and say, hey, you know what? We found, his bones and this, that, and the third, but you never know. So anyways, it's about that time.
Yeah.
Man.
Yeah.
It's about
we're about towards the end of the show, and we got a whole bunch of watchers too. We're up
Thank
to 11
you.
watchers.
Thank you all for watching today. In the Twitch, I'm going to put the YouTube link. Please subscribe if you get a chance to. I would 100% appreciate it because we do these every Friday. We talk about all kinds of interesting topics, from ancient aliens to pyramids, you name it. And if you want to hear something talked about, we will talk about it. And there it is. There's the link in the Twitch comments. And I will put that also in the main comments to anybody that's watching. But if you're watching from YouTube, you've already pretty much shown up. You know what I mean?
Right.
So I don't know much about that, to be honest, James, but I will look into it and we will definitely get back to you on that one for sure. Because I don't know about the Peru alien attack. Do you know about that?
I know about it, but I wasn't prepared, so it's not in my brain right now. I've got other facts.
Okay. So apologies. We will make 100%. James hit us up as we was leaving. He was like, "Hey, you guys know about that attack about the aliens in Peru?" We do not, and that's why I like James. James, you're a good dude. I want to thank everybody who showed up tonight. You guys are freaking awesome. Much love. Like, this is like one of the most amounts of people we've ever had on at once, and I love it. That means you guys are watching and listening. And we really appreciate it. I worked hard on this episode. I, did a lot of reading and studying and I want to bring the best to you guys because you guys deserve the best. And we appreciate each and every single one of you. I love you guys. Anyways, y'all, we'll be back next week. We're going to be talking about Noah. We're going to be talking about Noah, not just in Judaism, but in Islam and in some Sumerian texts as well. Unapishtim. As many of you might not know. And my guy here, he's excited because he knows all about the Unapishtim.
Yeah.
Look at him. Look at him rubbing his
Gilgamesh.
hands. And see, that's the thing. He knows that angle, and I know the Judaic angle. And so it's going to mesh really well. And then I'm looking forward to it. I got to move this way. Yeah, there it is.
There we
go. So please subscribe to the YouTube channel. I would much appreciate it. I'd be very grateful. Thank you, Fox's Fryer. I appreciate you. Thank you so much. You guys are beautiful and you're awesome. Keep letting your light shine. Keep doing what you guys do. Make it happen, because you know what? You only get one chance around this bad boy. So make your life what you want it to, because you guys are amazing. Scruffy, I love you. Foxfire, I love you. James, love you. Apple, love you. You guys are freaking awesome. Join us next week. Like I said, we'll be talking about Noah, Unapishtim, and some others. So make sure you guys get a hold of that, because it's going to be a good episode. Friday nights, 10 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Robert Solomon, Spider, of course. And as always, why be boring when you can be uncanny? We will see you beautiful, fine folks next week. Peace.